So let me ask you, based on last week, what did you take away from yesterday's meeting? What resonated with you? What's kind of still like gnawing at you or bugging that we had discussed around the conversation last week? I'm just curious. I know you're saying come and get us fired up again. So what? No, I'm asking, like, what was it that fired you up and the message from last week?
Kind of me personally, it wanted me to get up and like get going. Like the intellectual tour is something that hit me. I actually shared that at class I was teaching the very next day. I've never heard that term, and when I heard it, I was like, wow. Spotlight. So it kind of motivated me to like do more than just learn. Does that make sense?
Right on.
Like get going. So
Yeah, I would echo that too. You fired me up. I was ready to go. I'm like, I'm gonna go take bold. So, anyways, it was motivating to be that change for this new year, and you can do anything you want to do. Anything's possible.
Okay. Anyone else? Can I ask also a vulnerable question? How many of you were super fired up after last week and then went right back to what you've done every single week since and did nothing different? But you were like, that was fun. That was dynamic. Did you sign up for Bold? No. Did you actually increase your lead generation? No. What?
Like finding a treadmill, telling myself I'm gonna work out and then not ever use it.
Right? So that's, you guys, listen, I don't care if you're new, if you're in real estate, if you're in insurance, mortgages, title, whatever it is, this is the sticking point, right? It's how do we bridge the gap between intention and action, right? There was a saying that said, there are 5 frogs are on a log, 4 decide to jump. How many are left? One? How many of you have a different answer?
Well, they're deciding they're not gonna do it, so they're all still sitting there, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right? There's a huge difference between like making a decision and then taking commitment and then taking action, right? Like I can decide that this is the year for me to change, and yet how I show up to the obstacles is everything, right? And so when we talk about 2022, I'd like for you to consider that 2022 is the year of change if you choose. 2022 can be the year of change if you choose. How many of you, when you take a look at like your business planning and you look at your goals, how many of you are like, have a little bit of energy around it that kind of resonates right around here? Right? Makes your stomach hurt a little bit. And how many of you are like looking at the market's numbers, looking at the region's numbers, watching the red bars versus the green bars, are like, is this doable? Is it possible? Etc. Right? So the reason is I asked, many of you, I said, how many of you have some energy around it? It's a completely different word than we often use. How many of you have a different word around what you're feeling around your goals for 2022? What's another word that you have around that? Anxiety. And you know the difference between anxiety and energy or excitement? Do you know what the difference is between those?
Perspective.
It's label. Yeah, it's just simply the story that we tell us around the energy. It's like physiologically inside, it's the same chemical reactions. It's the same stress hormones that are releasing, right? It's the same type of neurochemical things. So if we want to get like really nitty gritty around it, butterflies, anxiety are the same as excited and electric, right? There was a study, what was I watching? Where they literally had case studies of these different sample groups of students and performers and people taking tests and doing a speech, and they had one sample group where they didn't tell them anything, and like when they asked them how are they feeling at the beginning, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. And then the other group, they coached them on simply making one specific shift in their preparation, and they taught them to say, before you get started, before you take the test, before you make that call, before you knock on that door, whatever it is, they said, I am so excited to do this. Like, I am so excited for this next step. And just simply reframing that one word. Do you know what the difference was in the results? there was over a 28% difference in the results of the tests, of the conversions, of the sales, etc., by just shifting our focus around it, right? And so when Sadie asked me to speak today, she's like, and I'm just like you, I'm looking ahead at 22 and going, how are we going to repeat what we just did, right? And so we got to make a couple choices. And so when I coach agents, there's topics, there's patterns, there's repetition that shows up. And I'd like to share with you, if it's okay with you, 3 of the biggest challenges or opportunities, if you want to change the label of it as well, that all agents at all levels of production, especially high performers, have. Would that be fair? If you have something to take notes, that would be a good opportunity to do that, because I didn't bring any slides, right? And so here's another challenge I'm gonna put out there. I like challenges, can you tell? I like to put out challenges. I like this to be participatory and actually like something that you can take with you. There was a speaker that I watched a video just this past weekend, and he said at the beginning of the class, he says, I would like you to take notes as if you have to teach this in an hour. I'd like for you to listen as if you've got to go home and tell your family about it in detail. I'd like for you to absorb this or consider this as if you are now going to become the expert. Fair? Cool. So as we move forward, I'd like for you to consider this to take back to your teams, to take back to your families, to take back to your life. Does that sound good? All right, let's roll. So there's 3 areas where top performers all face challenges. And the first one is really a lack of clarity of purpose and big why. We kind of touched on this last week. The second is what I like to call the 2 M's of achievement. And we'll go deeper into those in a minute. And the third is discipline and being out-negotiated. So let's talk about the first one. And this is a topic that Gary starts all of his books with, every Keller Williams University class starts with, and it's about getting clear on your clarity and purpose and big why. And I think I think Gene Rivers said this, and he says, if you consistently say that your family is your big why and you keep missing your goals, you either need new goals or a new family. Because one of them isn't working for you. It's really easy for us to say that our why and our purpose are these things, and yet if we're not hitting our goals, then we're not really getting clear. And there's how like candid am I allowed to be?
Candy.
I wanted
Like
to
a level
say
10,
that.
can we have a level 10 conversation with adults?
Oh gosh.
Yeah?
Sure.
So I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to share something with you that a coach shared with me that kicked me so hard in the stomach that I still haven't recovered. Right? And he says, it's not that you lack clarity in your big why. You know exactly what your big why is. The fact is that you are too scared shitless of who you have to become in order to achieve it that you choose to play small.
Yeah.
Huh. So I got to ask myself that every day. Like, who am I refusing to be because I'm too afraid of who I have to become in order to achieve that goal? The goals that you wrote down for 22 are not too big, and the market really doesn't matter. It's who do you have to become this year in order for that to become a reality? And are you prepared to level up in your leadership? Are you prepared to be level up in your mindset? Are you prepared to level up in your own self-discipline? Are you prepared to say no to certain things that you've been saying yes to all this time? That you know are a distraction, but it feels good. So the biggest challenge that most people have is that they lack clarity in their purpose and their why, because they choose to write down the small thing that sounds good that someone in a class told them once, as opposed to getting really real and raw as to like what's at stake, right? Last week we talked about what charities are missing out because of your choosing to just have enough, right? What organizations or people are not getting the best of you because you're just okay. In 2022, you get to choose that enough's enough, and good enough is no longer good enough. So what resonates with you from that conversation there? What stands out for you? Just that first piece, before we get into number 2 and 3. How are we doing on time? Good?
Good.
All right. You said 7, 8 minutes, and then you gave me 28, so.
Well, Randy has some stuff.
Oh, is there more? Okay, well then, good. I can wrap it up quick.
No, you don't have, I think you should be fine. I think
Okay.
it's probably like 7.
I didn't know that there was anything after, so,
Yeah, you're good.
cool. So what was it, what kind of stood out from you in just that brief conversation piece around purpose and why?
I think being honest about who you really have to become. It's easy to be honest about like vision and why, because that's like the dream, that's the stuff that it's fun to talk about, but it's
Yeah.
not fun to talk about who you have to be to get those things.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah, we were just on a leadership call this past week where we talked about the ideal, like the ideal teammate and like the reality of winning. And a lot of times when we think about winning, we think winning is fun. Winning isn't fun. The result of having won is fun for a moment. The process of becoming a winner is brutal, unfiltered, hard, dirty, unpolished, right? Sweaty, stinky sometimes. And yet it's that process that allows us to have the outcome, which is fun. And yet at the end of the day, just winning isn't necessarily a big enough why for many of us. Because how many of you have achieved the goal and at the end of it, you're like, hey, that was cool, and yeah, same. So this first one I share with you, I struggle with this with you, at the same level with you, right? Like I still don't know who I'm going to be when I grow up, and yet I'm leaning into a path and a direction as hard as I can, at the risk of whatever, right? And maybe along the way I'll self-discover a little bit more, right? Like maybe around the next turn I was, oh, cool. Maybe I'll take a minute off of this exit before I continue on the highway, right? So I'm going to challenge you, right? Find ways and ask yourself some big questions around clarity, purpose, and why. And during the last mastermind, Gary had posted 10 questions that he asks himself and has clarity around it. And do you have those? I can send them to you as well, that are really, really good questions to at least get a direction, if not exactly what. So the second is attacking the 2 M's of your goal. And when we take a look at any of our goals, in order for us to achieve something different in our business, we got to come at it from one of 2 angles: mindset or mechanics. And sometimes both, right? So when we take a look at our goal, if our goal is to increase by 50%, the question I got to ask myself is, how am I going to grow my mindset by 50% in order to hit that goal? How am I going to grow my leadership by 50%? How am I going to grow my discipline by 50%? How am I going to grow my accountability by 50%? Before I can even start attacking what to do, right? Because you will only achieve to the level of your mindset, right? We talked about that the biggest chokehold of any business is psychology of the leader. Right? The psychology of the leader is the chokehold of the business. So when we talk about the next set of goals, we got to ask ourselves, who do I have to become? Mindset. And then mechanics. What do I have to do better? What do I have to do less of? That's no longer important. Where do I double down on those productive activities? What systems, tools, strategic options, and strategies have I not implemented it to its fullest that I'm just kind of touching the surface of? What more do I need to learn about command? What other follow-up systems or campaigns am I missing? What conversations am I not having because I don't have enough reminders to tell me so, or we don't have this blocked out enough, right? So there's mechanics around success as well. We know what to do, why don't we do it? Well, mindset and mechanics, they both go together. And then lastly, it's discipline. And the fact is that agents, we talk about the reason why everyone gets into business is the freedom, the flexibility, and the money. We focus so much on the freedom and the flexibility, we never make any money. We come into this thinking as entrepreneurs, you're not the boss of me, I do what I want. But the reality is the highest performers and achievers in this industry are very strategic, very disciplined, very specific in what they do and when they do it, so then they can have all the time in the world to do what they want when they want it, with whom they choose. Right? So it's the discipline that equals freedom. Gary says that success is the ability to become good with the repetition and boredom of what it takes. Success is the ability to become good with the repetition and boredom of what it takes to succeed. And the reality is, and many of you could probably resonate with this, is that you're out negotiating the wrong person every single day. And that person is you. The moment you achieve any kind of resistance or encounter any kind of resistance, think about this, like when you're working out or you're on a meal plan or you're looking to change something in your life, there's that voice that creeps in, is like, oh man, you can take a break. You did more than before. It's totally good. Slow down. You know what? You deserve that piece of cake. You know, have another drink. It's okay. It's okay. It's early, right? You know, hey, you already made 10 calls. You've never made 10 calls before. You don't need to make that 15 just because you said so. No one's gonna know. How would they know? They're gonna know. Oh my God. Right? You can always make it up. Be realistic. What other reasons come into your mind to keep you from your commitments? So you gotta be, look, in this business as salespeople, we negotiate all the time. However, at our own demise, we out-negotiate ourselves from our dreams every single day. I know this because yesterday I started a new kettlebell routine, and it had 5 rounds of 4 moves, and I was 3 rounds in ready to throw up, and I was like, I'm good. I've not done this before. I need to slow it in. Like, ease in. No. I had to like, it was loud and very, very clear. Like, I should stop. My heart rate was telling me to stop. My breath was telling me. Every physiological indicator was like, you're going to die. And I said, no, the plan is 5 rounds. Take a little longer of a break if you need to. Press pause on the video if you need to. Stop out negotiating yourself for your dreams. Let your why be strong enough that you don't stop because it hurts. You stop when you're done. And if you're tired of starting over, stop quitting. And then watch 2022 be the year that you chose. Because you took action. You didn't you didn't decide to do it. You did it. You kicked its ass. Share with me what you heard.